Hi, so I'm back, and this time I'm going to do a longer video and I'm going to get more into my story. I've tried to make this video multiple times and unfortunately there's so much that happened and there's so much to my story that I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through it all in one go, because so far as I've tried to make this video, I get to a certain point and I get kind of overwhelmed, frustrated, triggered, whatever it may be, and I just stop the video, delete it, and I'm like, I don't even know if I want to do this, but I do know that I want to do this, so that's why I'm trying again. Let's see what happens with this one. Either I'll get through it or I'll end up just deleting it like I deleted all the others, but fingers crossed, right? Let's try. So my story is really weird, and that is something that kept me from sharing it for a really long time. But as I've heard other people share their stories, I realized my story is not as weird as I thought it was. It was weird for me, like, and the community that I was raised in, my story was like a weird story, like, considering the people that were like around me, but I realized that it's not that weird. As I've heard other people telling their stories, I've realized that there's more people probably who can relate to different parts of this than maybe I had thought previously. So I can't get too much into there are certain details I have to be really careful with, and so because there are people, this isn't stuff that happened 100 years ago, this is stuff that happened to me in my life, and so there are people who are innocent and still alive, and I don't ever want me telling my story to hurt them in any way or impact them in any way, so I am gonna tell it in a way that I believe will protect those people. That's also why I'm wearing a mask. I'm not actually wearing a mask because I'm afraid of anything happening to me. I live in a Western country. I was born here. That's not it for me, but what it is for privacy, and because I'm gonna get into, well, I'm gonna tell my story, and it involves being hurt by somebody who's very powerful and has kind of fanatic followers, and so for that reason and also because of it's for that, and it's also because of the people that were around me during certain times who, if anybody figured out who I am, then they might know who I'm talking about when I say certain things, so that's why. Anyway, okay, so we're gonna start my story at the age of 14 when I went to live with my aunt and uncle. And I was already very religious when I went to live with them, but when I started living with them, I became more religious. And the reason I became more religious is because we went to two different masjids, two different mosques. So we were at a mosque almost every night. One masjid that we went to was pretty progressive. For the time, this is happening in the late 90s, early 2000s. And the other one was extremely traditional. Most of the people that went to that masjid had only been in the West for a few years, some even just a few months. The community was very new, and so it was still very traditional. So there was, so as I was getting closer to my 15th birthday, I remember that there was a guy that I had kind of known. He was an older guy, and he started like coming around, like he wanted to go with us to go to the bazaar, like the swap meet. And I thought it was a little weird because he's like a single guy and they don't usually hang out with families and whatnot. But I didn't think that much of it because he stayed close to my uncle and I was with my aunt and the kids, and I wasn't like I was talking to him or anything. But I remember after a little while, my aunt and uncle sitting me down and telling me that he wanted to marry me, and I was just like, no. Like, and at this time I had already been, I wasn't in school, I was working. My uncle owned an auto body shop. My other, not the uncle I lived with, but his brother, my other uncle. And I was working there in the front office. So I was already working, and I wasn't in school or anything like that. I was homeschooled before that, and then I went to Islamic school, girls' school. So I was just horrified, and I was like, even though it was like super common in our community, like a lot of my friends had already gotten married and everything like that, but I just didn't want to. And they were like, okay, that's fine. And they were like, well, what do you want to do then? Because you're the age, like you're getting kind of in that zone. And I was like, I want to be a scholar. Like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a scholar. I wanted to study Islam, and I wanted to eventually teach Islam to other women. And they were like, okay. Like, my family was okay with that, which was surprising. I wasn't really expecting it. I remember feeling like I don't know, like I wasn't expecting it, but they were okay with it. So they were like, all right, well, if you want to, study and get serious and whatever, we need to start spending more time at the more conservative mosque that I mentioned. And the reasoning behind that was because that's where the imam spent the majority of his time teaching, and they thought that like I needed to be hearing more of his khutbahs, more of his lectures. So we started going to that masjid. And another thing is I have a lot of holes in my memory, so I don't actually remember. I remember we started going there, and then it's just kind of like I have pieces, like I have flashes of memory, but I can't actually remember like a whole timeline of like exactly what happened. I don't have a lot of memories up until it was Eid, and we were at the masjid, and everybody was in a line because they wanted to drink water out of the imam's cup. Like he had a cup that he had taken a drink out of, and everybody was standing in line because they wanted to take a drink out of his cup. And he called me to the front of the line in front of everybody, and I'm at the time, and even till now, I'm a fairly shy person. I don't like being the center of attention. I don't like having a lot of people looking at me at the same time. So I remember how awkward and uncomfortable I felt when I was walking up to him when he called me up. And I get up there, and instead of giving me the cup, like his cup, like to drink out of, he reaches into his robe and he pulls out this box, and he's like, I have an Eid gift for you. And I was just like, I didn't know what to do because, well, first of all, I didn't have an Eid gift for him, and second of all, like I'm a 14-year-old girl, and there's all these men around, and if you're gonna have an Eid gift for anybody, it should be like a guy that's like respected or somebody like older in the community, not me. And so I'm just kind of like there, just like, just kind of frozen. And so he gives me this box, and I'm just like, thank you. And he's like, no, open it. And everybody's looking. And I opened the box, and it was a pen. And he was like, I've never told this to anybody. The only people who would know this, if they remembered it, would be the people who were there that day. I opened up this stupid box, and it was a pen, like a really nice pen. And he basically said, this pen is for you to use while you study, because I'm quitting teaching all my classes. Like, I'm not going to teach Islamic school anymore in the masjid. I'm going to come live with your family and tutor you full time, because I've never met a mind that could keep up with my mind intellectually, and I finally found it in you. So I remember in that moment, because I had so much respect for this man. I had so much, I idolized. This was like the person who everybody respected the most. Like, he was Sayyid, he was an imam, and for him to give me a compliment like that in front of everybody, like in front of the whole community, in that moment of my life, so young, and that was the nicest thing anybody had ever said to me. And so after that, he moved in with us, and we had all this goodwill in the community, because everybody had been there when he said that, and nobody thought hey, why does he have to quit teaching Islamic school to move in and devote all his time to this child? Nobody thought that. All anybody thought was, oh my God, this family is really close to the imam, they're special. Our status in the community went from good to better, just in that moment, immediately. So he moves in with us, and he won't, at first, and it's so weird, the things I remember, I remember that he wouldn't eat my aunt's food. He wouldn't eat when my aunt cooked. He wanted me to cook, only me. And he had such a palate for spicy food. He needed his food to be, and I was doing everything I could. I wasn't used to cooking spicy food. My family wasn't into spicy food. So I'm doing everything I can to try and this is before Google, this is late 90s. So I couldn't just Google, how do I make this man's fucking food spicy? I was trying different things, and I was just really not having a lot of luck getting this guy's food to be as spicy as he wanted. I remember that. And I remember that after we would eat at night, we would all be sitting in the living room, and my younger their kids would be there. They were all much younger than me, and he would just be telling us stories. And I remember I'd be sitting on the floor just listening and thinking wow, I can't believe he's really sitting here in our house, this was such a blessing. And I kept thinking Allah must be so happy or proud of us, because this man is closer to Allah, and he's with us, he chose me. So of course that means all these rules that we're following and all these things we're doing, and that must, I don't even know how to explain it. Anyway, so he would tell us all these different stories, and when I got older, it took many years, but as I got genuinely as I started reading and learning about grooming and all this kind of stuff, I realized that he was grooming not only me but my family, like with these stories that he was telling. So there's two stories I'm going to talk about here. The other ones don't really matter, but he told this one story about how he had gone to this place in, I'm not going to say what country because I don't think that really matters, in this one country, and this guy, like this older imam, had taught him how to catch a jinn. And so now he, like, you know, and it was like really hard, like they had to make this like circle, and then you know, they had to like say all this different stuff, and then it would catch a jinn, but like but the jinn would like try to scare you before they would get caught by you. But if you could make it through to the end and like get the jinn, then the jinn would have to do like anything that you wanted. And I believed in jinn at the time, and I was scared of them. So now he's like, and then he was also like wanting to like read our palms, which I at the time was like, wait, this is haram. But my mind was like, this is haram, we're not supposed to read palms. But then it was like, but if he's doing it and he's the highest Islamic authority that I knew, I wasn't going to say anything, you know? So, and then he starts telling us these stories about how in this country, in that country, when like families take the train and they have this problem with mahram. Mahram is like people you're not allowed to marry. So it's like people you don't have to cover in front of. So they have this problem with you know, they're in these train cars, and these trips are like really long. And so what they would do to make sure that there was like nobody committing any sins is that they would have like one of the youngest girls marry, if there was like a single man traveling, the young daughter would be married to him, and that way he would be mahram, he would be related to the mother, and that way if like a piece of her hair came out or something like that, there wouldn't be any sins. And the reason I remember this story is because shortly thereafter, he started saying that we couldn't study at the kitchen table anymore. Like it wasn't, he was like, it's too loud, and the kids are like disturbing, and I can't focus here. And he wanted me to go down with him into his room and study there. And I was like, no, like we can't do that. And my aunt took me in the kitchen, and she was like, what are you doing? Like, you're embarrassing me and us. Like, you have to, like, why are you questioning? Like, and I was just like, we're not supposed to be alone with men. And she was like, it's not men, like he's not men, that's Sayyid. And I was like, oh, like, okay, but like I didn't want to go, like, and I'm not upset, or I don't hold anything against my aunt, because I just don't. Anyway, so we went down, so we started doing the lessons in his room, which was in our house because he was staying with us. And at first it was normal, except that he's sitting on his bed and I'm sitting on like a little chair, and I'm comfortable because there's like, he's sitting on his bed, so I'm like, I was already very uncomfortable. And then I don't remember, honestly, I don't know how long it stayed normal. I don't have clear memory like that. What I have are pieces. I just have pieces of my memory. So I remember he was trying to teach me to say khaf. It's an Arabic sound that I wasn't saying right. And it comes from the back of your throat, he said. Like, he wanted to like touch my throat to show me where it comes from, and I was like, you can't touch me, like it's haram. And he was like, oh, here's what we're gonna do. I'll say a temporary marriage contract with you, and then I'll give you $1, and that way we'll be mahram, and that way it's okay for me to touch you. And in my head, I remembered the story that he had told us about the train car and how this was a way of getting around the rules or whatever. So I was like, okay. So he says the marriage contract, and he gives me $1, and just like almost immediately, he just started abusing me, and I was crying. And I didn't say like no or stop it. I just pulled away. Like I kept pulling away, and I was just like frozen, and I was crying. And he said, I'm a direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you already know from Islamic school that a wife can't say no to her husband, because if she does, all the angels curse her. She can't go to Jannah, she can't go to heaven. And you're my wife now. You can't say no to me. And I was so religious and so young that I got scared, and I thought that I couldn't do anything about it, you know? So this was going on for a while, and I stopped talking. Like I stopped speaking completely, and my aunt knew something was wrong, because I hadn't spoken in I don't know how long. I don't remember how long it was, but it was a while. And so one day we're down there, and she just opened the door and walked in with a tray of tea. And of course she walked in on what was happening. So she took me out, and she took me upstairs, and she was like, you have to tell me everything. You have to tell me. And I did. I told her. And she gave me one of her abayas to put on, and we left the house. And I don't remember where we went. I just know he was still there. And we didn't go back home until my uncle was home that night. And my uncle kicked him out of the house. And they were like they weren't mad at me, they weren't yelling at me or anything like that. But when I told my aunt everything, part of what I told her was that he had bought me all this like lingerie, and that he would make me wear it, that he would take pictures, he would make videos, and he was like threatening me with those photos. And my memory is it's not good around this time. Like what I'm telling you right now is that's like, there's not much more than that. There's a little bit more that I don't really want to like get into, but I mean that's pretty much what I remember. And I remember my aunt being really upset and saying that she almost lost her faith because of it. And I was like so terrified at the prospect of my aunt losing her faith, because I was very religious and very devout, and I thought that if she loses her faith, she's going to go to hell, and then it's going to be my fault. And understand that at this time in my life, I'm 14, almost 15, I don't see what happened to me as abuse at the time. I knew it didn't feel good. That's why I stopped speaking. I was experiencing the trauma, but I was not using the language in my head, because in my head the story that was given to me was, this is Islamic. And the way that he told me was that he had just done this marriage so that he could teach me, and the only reason he wanted to teach me is because that's what I wanted. I wanted to be a scholar, and my family asked him if he would teach me, and he said that because he had seen me in the other room of the masjid doing the dishes, and I was holding my sleeve like this, and I was putting away a plate, and I was holding my sleeve down so that when I reached to put the plate away, my sleeve wouldn't go down and show my wrist. And he said when he saw me doing that, that's when he decided. He said my modesty seduced him. He said that to me. My modesty seduced him. So, anyway, I'm starting to get to the point where I usually stop making this video because I'm feeling really like icky, but I'm not going to do that this time. I'm not going to stop. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of try and speed things up a little bit, and then I'll come back and do another video later with more details. So anyway, my family ultimately decided that if anybody found out about this, it was going to be really bad for everybody, that nobody would marry their kids. And so I had to keep going to Islamic school, but now my aunt would come with me, so I didn't have to go alone, because he started teaching again, and they didn't want anybody to know that like our family had like a problem with him or anything like that, because remember, like our status went up so much because of like him moving in and teaching me and whatever. So like for him to suddenly leave, it was already like suspicious, and they were trying really hard to make sure like nobody knows anything, there's no problem. So after Islamic school, he would like catch me like in the parking lot, and he would always wait until there was people so that I couldn't like go anywhere, because I was trying to be really like smart about it and like avoiding him, and like I was doing a really good job, but then he would always end up catching me like in the parking lot, and it would be like right in front of my family, and he would be like, I have a gift for you, and he would have these like, he would bring gift boxes like wrapped, and he would just hand them to me in front of everybody, and I would take them because okay, like now everybody thinks like, oh, okay, whatever the problem was, like obviously it's, or whatever we thought was a problem, well, it's clearly not, because, you know, it's like, he's never given a gift to anybody ever, and like, he's giving her these gifts or whatever to his, you know, his student. So I would take them, and then I would just get in the car. I was still working at this time, like I was still working in the front office of the shop, and he would call the shop and call the shop and call the shop and call the shop. He just wasn't stopping, and nobody was gonna do anything to stop him because they were terrified of anybody finding out. So they decided that the best thing to do, oh wait, hold on, I didn't even, what was in the gift boxes that he was giving me at the mosque in front of everybody, right? I'm 14 years old. Lingerie. He's obsessed with lingerie. And it was also a reminder to me that, hey, don't forget, I have these pictures of you. And it was very, very effective. So anyway, they decided that the best thing that could happen is to get me married. to like deal with the situation, cover up the situation. So in my next video, I'm going to get into how that went down and how I ended up having to get married and all the drama that went along with like that imam like wanting to do the nikah, like the ceremony, and him like following us and moving into our apartment building and just all kinds of drama. But I'm going to leave this video for now because this has been more than I've ever said to anybody in one time. And I made this video because it's something that's not talked about, and because of the fact that he groomed me so well, I believe that he has done this to other people. That's why I tried to share the details that I could remember, because if something similar happened to you, or some of those details that I shared are similar to something that happened to you, like especially those specific stories, please reach out to me. And anyway, yeah, I'm gonna leave this here. So if you made it this far, you're amazing. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back.